Being Your Best You with Dr. Keir.
I'm exceptional, thank you. How are you today?
I'm so good.
Blocks to bold, brass to gold, better to best. We all get caught in mental mazes, believing that we have to live the way others see us, or being taught to think things through. Dr. Keir is an agent of change using Geotran human programming and activations to quickly and easily release people from the automatic patterns and inner glitches that block their healthy, wealthy, happy life. Instead of going where our innate circuitry takes us. Being in alignment with you is the best way to create your best life. Are you ready to be your best self? Being Your Best You with Dr. Keir. Welcome to the show.
Hey, this is Dr. Keir speaking, and as you see, we have a different background because we're taping this from France. Woohoo! So I'm sure I have another beret around somewhere. Now, today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Priscilla, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her last name, but I'm sure she's going to tell us. Anyway, Priscilla is a clinical hypnotherapist like our lovely Dr. Kevin, and we are going to talk about the way that the subconscious affects patterns in our life. As you know, those patterns make up, that is to say, the subconscious makes up 90 to 95% of what's going on. So it's really cool that we know how to change things there. And I'm so happy to welcome Priscilla to the show. And I know that she's going to come on any second now. Yep, there she is. All right. Now, how do you pronounce your last name? I'm very particular about names, as you can imagine. And I should have asked you earlier. I apologize. How do you pronounce your name?
No, that's okay. It's Priscilla Jogminas.
Jogminas. You see, I would have got it wrong. So fortunately, you are here to say it correctly for us. Now, I know that you know Dr. Kevin Richardson.
Yes, I do.
Because you recommended that I don't do. And now I believe that you teach at the institute where he did some of his learning. Have I got that right?
Yes. I was a mentor and a teacher at HMI, which is the College of Hypnotherapy. And so, yeah, I taught there for a little while. I mentored, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm currently no longer teaching there. I've actually started to, go into my own practice and really start to develop that. But it was a wonderful experience. I really loved all of the students there. It was really wonderful time mentoring and teaching hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it is a fascinating field of study. And as you know, Dr. Kevin and I have done various shows together, both in this format and elsewhere. And it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. The whole thing is just fascinating. Now, as you know, and as our viewers know, I work primarily in the subconscious. The subconscious does make up 90 to 95% of what's going on at any given time. And so, although I honor and respect what, for example, therapists and coaches do, that is actually different from what we do, because they're primarily working in the conscious realm. And nothing wrong with that. You need to have that also, clearly. Yeah. But how fun is it to go rootling around in there and knowing that we can create sustainable change and transformation. It always seems to me that if you have to work in the conscious all the time, that it's a lot of work. You have to have a lot of discipline. Now, I don't know about you, but discipline is not actually a strong suit. So when everything has to be in the conscious, then that kind of implies you're going to have to, every day you're going to have to lay down a new track, as it were, in order for those changes and that transformation to really hold. But that is not really the case, I think, or not as much the case in what I do in geotran neuroprogramming, and also, of course, what you do with clinical hypnotherapy. So, having blethered a little bit here, would you please tell us how you got into this field?
Yes,
I presume
definitely.
you start out there.
No, actually, I started my journey when I was a little girl. I really wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a medical doctor. And everyone was like, oh, no, little girls are nurses. They're not doctors. And so I remember I got this little play set when I was a kid. It was a nursing play set. And I turned it around and it became this white lab coat. And I was a doctor to all my animals. And I was treating them and I was giving them medicine. And I would go in my little bathroom when I was a kid and I would mix up lotion and water and I'd put it on my animals' little paws and I'd fix them. And I just thought I was, and in my mind, in my subconscious mind, I was a doctor, right? I was a doctor helping, these sick animals and these, and of course sometimes they weren't animals, sometimes they were a person. It just depended on how my subconscious mind took me on that journey. And so as I got older, I started to pursue the traditional medical field. I went into vocational nursing. I also was a medical assistant, and I was working in nursing homes and also in hospice and pre-hospice caregiving places. And I watched people transition into the other side. And I loved what I did. But for me, it was very difficult to watch that there were so many things about these people that could be shifted and changed. And I knew there was something else that could be done for them besides what was physically being done, because every medication had a side effect. Everything that we did, it would only work so much, or it would only go so far. And I knew that there was something beyond that. And coming from a spiritual background, I grew up in a very spiritual background. And so I'm thinking, okay, there's the mind, body, and spirit. And I was always taught this since I was little. So I said to myself, I want to find the spiritual part of this. I want to find the side that is beyond, because I'm all about logic and I'm all about reason. But I think it's very important to combine logic and reason with the mind, body, and spirit, because we are multidimensional beings. We do operate in every single field in that. So I started looking into NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. And I was watching a lot of Tony Robbins at that time. And, I was trying to kick my bad eating habits. And I said, you know what, I'm going to look for a school out here. And I had no idea if there was a school out here. And I looked it up and there it was, Hypnosis Motivation Institute. And I said, well, here I go. And I started going to start really working on yourself. You have no idea. And I was like, wow. And I said, I want to take this and I want to help others. And then I really started getting interested in past life regression, which was something that I do in my practice today. But that's basically how I got here, was being a light worker, being someone who wants to help others, being a spiritual person, and wanting to just make all those connections, because you can't just do one. You have to really connect all of them to really holistically help the person with all of the issues.
Yes. So here we talk about, well, I think of automatically the right brain, left brain deal about, as you know, the right brain is very much big picture. My own teacher, Dorothy Espio, was very right-brained. And so it was advantageous to her that before I started with Geotran, although I was a designer, I went to architecture school, I was very left-brained, very, very left-brained. So my writing is just, impeccable, as we say, impeccable, as we say here in France. So I was always coming from the detail, bringing, and those going together to make the big picture. And she was always coming from the big picture, breaking down into details. So although we didn't get on temperamentally in terms of work, it was really helpful. And to this day, I am the keeper of the computer files for all of Geotran.
And so if I was your
What's that?
so if I was your client, doctor, and I wanted to, let's say I wanted to change my my habits as far as exercising. Let's say I don't like to exercise. And again, this is a real issue, okay?
Okay.
So how would what you do, and I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly because I'd like you to, because I'm not as familiar with it, and I would love to know more about it because it sounds extremely interesting. And I read a little bit, but I'm very intrigued. So how would you help someone, let's say, if they had an issue with exercise? Because I know that's my main issue, is like exercising and getting out there, because the birds are chirping and everything's beautiful, but I just want to stay in bed and either work on emails or just sleep or whatever. And so what would be your suggestion for someone who's trying to break a habit?
Well, in general, that's actually a really great question, especially as it deals with an area I don't normally look at. Yeah?
Oh, okay.
So no, that's really good. Yeah, because sooner or later I'm going to have a client who says, okay, what I really want to change here is, right? So here's how I would approach it. First, I would say, what percent are you? Right? What percent are you?
Okay.
Because you can't really make these changes. You're not even going to want to make these changes unless you are first you. And typically, people, it ranges wildly depending on how stressed people are. I have worked with people who are down to 4%. But as long as there's that little kernel, we can bring them back, but it may take a little bit, But typically people are between, say, 50 and 70% who they were designed to be. Okay. So that's what we work on first. We say, okay, how many other people, places, or things are going on in there? And they are telling you what to do or what to believe. Because most of what I do is in the psyche. Yeah. It's in that middle place of what you think, feel, believe, and desire. So if we can get them back to being who they really are designed to be, and if we can get them back into the now, it's at that point we start asking, well, what is it you want to change in your life? And maybe if it's you, we should have a go at this. This would be really fun.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are you and you are in the now, then I would be asking, well, what is it that you want to change? And you're saying to me, okay, I want to change my exercise patterns. I want to actually do some exercise rather than thinking about doing some exercise.
Yes, I do it in my head all the time. I have a great record. I do it every morning in my head.
Well, the people who train top athletes say, sometimes the training is just going on in the mind, and they picture themselves running that race. They picture themselves, what's that thing where they jump over high poles?
Right.
That just remember, in terms of your system, and I know you'll agree with me on this, in terms of your system can't tell the difference between a memory, a fantasy, your imagination, something completely made up. But the problem is it also can't tell the difference between something you're experiencing and something somebody around you is experiencing if they're doing it strongly enough that it's imprinting on you.
Yes.
Right? So that's where I'm saying that 80% of what I clear from people is actually from others.
Oh, yeah? See, that's very interesting. I find the same in my work as well.
Yeah, sure. So then I would be asking, okay, do you have a belief about exercise that is getting in your way? Yes, no. Now I would be muscle testing the whole time. When I ask that kind of question, I'm not really asking you. I'm asking in the field because I know you don't know. Or to put it another way, you know in the subconscious, but you don't know in the conscious. So it's no good my asking you questions like that in the conscious, right?
Right.
I mean, you must find this with your clients all the time.
Exactly. Yes. There's a lot of crossover.
Yeah. So yay for muscle testing. Okay. So then, so first, so the thing we would check is there something that needs to be subtracted? We get those out of the way, including stuff that happened primarily before you were 10, when you're still very much ruled by that subconscious. And especially looking for things that other people have laid on you. For example, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. What happened when you were 9 years old? And you don't have to say, of course. And it was something to do with it's not something to do with your parents. Something happened to you at school. Right?
That's very interesting.
Or around you at school.
Yeah, we used to get punished and we'd have to do laps.
Well, that would be enough to put anybody off, obviously. Yeah. So if in your subconscious mind, you're associating exercise with punishment, hello, you're a grown-up now, you're not going to do that.
No, and I never even put the 2 and 2 together until we had this conversation. That's 100% honest. So there you go.
So what you can do as a hypnotherapist, and what I can do as a G-Trend practitioner, is I think it'll probably be pretty similar. We would go back. We would take you back to 9 years old, and we would change something about the situation so that you are no longer interpreting it in a way that is not helpful to you. Sometimes it's enough just to go back there and have your favorite aunt, I say just as an example, show up and say, hey, you know this punishment thing? Firstly, it's not right. And secondly, it's not about you. It's not about you. I can't tell you how many times I end up saying that to people. It's not about you. The issue is that your PE teacher was having some issue of I presume her own, and brought it into school and splashed it around the place because they didn't know how to handle it. And here are you, all these impressionable 9-year-olds, and they think it's about them, and it's not. Right. So we would rework that file in such a way that now when you consider exercise, it's like, I have a choice here. Yeah, because it's all about restoring choice. All of G-Trend is about restoring choice.
That's incredible. And that's so, like, I find that so much with my clients, is that everything goes back to something that was put onto them by somebody else. And it's so sad what we're carrying around that has been put on our backs, and we don't know that we can't give it back. We think we've got to carry it. We feel like it's ours now, and it doesn't belong. And I tell people all the time, it's okay. Like, you can literally put a bow on it. It doesn't have to be with anger or malice. You put a bow on it. You splash little sparkles in the air, and you give it back to them, and you say, have a great time with that.
Actually, what I normally have my people do, and you might want to try this with yours as well, is I have them throw them out, throw the other person out. And sometimes it's not a person, of course. Sometimes it's a person, somebody else's coveting, craving, jealousy, envy, Pharisee, hatred, greed, victim, grudges, I won't worry, judgment, unforgiveness, blame, or other. But often it's people. And it's going to be people that, they spend time with for one reason or another. Okay, so right brain only responds to actions and pictures. Left brain only responds to words and sounds. So what do? Wow!
That's great. And I always tell them, this is your subconscious's version of the person. You're not actually hurting the person.
No, you're not hurting the person. No, you're not. You're just throwing them overboard.
Yes. And it has to be done, because it's like, I don't know if you ever saw that movie. Oh God, I can't even remember the name of it. So there was a movie where it was talking about where they go into this other realm, and they have I think Leonardo DiCaprio was in it, and they have these little things that they take with them. And basically it's all about the subconscious mind. It's very interesting.
Right.
When I think of the name, I will recommend it. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have brought this up unless I had it previously.
I
But
totally understand, because I love
yeah,
films and I've seen a lot of films and I don't
okay.
always remember their names either.
But
But the point is,
yeah, but the point of the movie was that every person in this subconscious experience that he was having, because he basically had lost his wife and child, so he kept going into this alternate reality and spending time with them and going into all these memories with them and everything and trying to relive it. And what he finally realized was that he was not really in there with his wife and his child. These are memories.
yes.
And that he had to let the memories go of who he remembered them to be, and not actually let them go, because there was a place for them in the world when they were alive at that time. But in this moment, to be able to relive his own experience, to be able to live his life to the fullest, he needed to let the memory of that go and move forward. Not to, and so like what you're talking about, I think it's so important to let people know it's okay to let it go, because the only person you're hurting is you by holding on to it.
Yeah.
So I hope that was eloquent. I tried to bring it home there.
It actually reminds me a little bit of What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams.
Yes, that's another really awesome movie too.
Yeah, and it's all going on in here somewhere. Yeah, because the system doesn't know the difference. It's exactly like your electronic computer. It does not say good program, bad program. It says, ooh, coding, I can do this.
Right.
And that's how we pick up the human equivalent of computer viruses from the people that we're hanging out with. So I'm very often saying to people, now listen, I'm not going to make a choice for you, but I want to point out to you, especially with clients that I've worked with for a while, that every time you come into contact with so-and-so, it takes you out like a computer virus. And with the computer virus, there really only are 3 possible outcomes. I'm sure you would agree. 1, you end up running a program you do not want to run.
Yes.
2, you have a strong immune system energetically. You can skirt around the glitch, but then it takes up system resources and you get tired. And 3, how many 3? Eventually the system crashes. And that's when we start getting these mystery ailments. Yeah. I mean, I've worked a lot on mystery ailments one way or another. And the thing that is, I think, very exciting, and I'm sure you find this with your clients too, is, when somebody has a condition that's been in them long enough to get into the physical, which usually takes over a year and can take quite a lot longer. Once that means that their frequency or vibration has gone low enough. Yes. Yeah, it's gone slow enough to start affecting them in their physical being. Well, that then becomes a little bit more challenging to change. That's why we end up having medication and whatnot, But if we can find out what the actual cause is in the non-physical, that is so much easier to change. That's so much faster to change. And that means that their physical condition can improve very, very rapidly. It also means that if, contrary-wise, let's say somebody's got one of these illnesses of one sort and another. I don't even want to mention any names because I don't want to bring the frequency vibration of it. But let's say they've got something fairly drastic. If we do not find the cause and release the cause, if we don't throw that luggage overboard, then even if we deal with it symptomatically, they're quite likely to develop other symptoms around that meridian or organ or element in the traditional Chinese medical sense, because the perturbation factor is still operating. Yeah, so effectively the computer virus is still in there, and it's going to show itself in some other way.
Yes, and I think also to add to that, and that's brilliant, and I love that, and it's such a wonderful explanation of some of the things that people come in with for me as well with. But I think also when people own it, when they make it a part of their identity, when they say,
Yes.
I have, or I am a da-da-da,
Yes.
it becomes a part of them. The most difficult virus to get off of a computer is a virus that is integrated into the system, and the computer thinks that it's a part of
Yes.
its environment.
Yes.
When, even with the subconscious mind, we talk about knowns and unknowns. And a lot of times the knowns are harmful things that aren't good for us. But because the body is familiar with it, because we identify with it as a part of our identity, for smoking, for instance, and I'm not trying to call anybody out on anything. I was a smoker for a very long time, but every time people would ask me, why do you go outside? I'd say, well, I'm a smoker, right? Now I don't identify as a smoker anymore.
Yay!
So what's the difference between the person that was a smoker and the person that is not a smoker? It's the same person. It's the way that I identified. It's
You're
the
no longer
ownership that I
claiming it.
had of it. Yes.
Yeah. So you saw the question there on the bottom of the screen.
I did it.
I was just reading to the end of the paragraph.
As long
Thank
as
you, Angie. Okay, that's our lovely producer, Angie B, who puts the questions up.
Hi,
Okay,
Angie.
now, is this why people keep getting sick repeatedly? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Now,
100%.
Of course, there are other factors. Of course, you got, especially if it's something like diabetes, you need to clean up your diet, right? Or if you're obese, you need to clean up your diet and get some more exercise.
Yes.
Or, however, having said that, here's an even better example. I have a former client who had 18 car accidents.
Oh, wow.
In the space of 10 years. And we had to work on that as a pattern. Yeah. What were those car accidents? I was going to say doing for her. I don't mean to sound all Pollyanna-ish, but in general, not always, but in general, when you have a pattern, even if it looks negative from out here, on some level, it's trying to do something beneficial for you normally.
Yes, it's like what do they call that? Oh my God, my brain. Secondary gain. Secondary gain. Like when we deal with past life regression.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about is, do you have any contracts? Do you have anything that you have signed up for? Do you have a way that your soul likes to become enlightened? Do you have a way that your soul likes to, learn lessons? And it almost becomes like they go through these themes. Well, this person really loves a certain theme. Like when you walk into a movie theater and you really love seeing romantic comedies. Every single lifetime for a while is going to be this romantic comedy and everyone's in love. And then maybe you decide, I'm bored of that. Now I want to go to an action adventure theme. So now everything in your life is like these huge, gigantic things that are happening to you, and you're having to get out and save yourself and save others, and you're a crusader. And then maybe the next time your soul wants to go on a comedy journey and just your whole life is funny and all the things that happen to you, you're like, it only happens to me, what the heck? And so I do think that our soul learns in this way. And so I feel that with these types of things, this may be one way energetically that she is finding is the quickest and easiest way for her soul to learn something, but she's not learning it. So unfortunately, her soul says, well, this is how we learn. So it's like that computer program over and over again, repeating it and going, okay, until you break out of the pattern, until you break the contract. And a lot of people don't know how to do this because it has to be shown to them. Tech support, like in the movie Vanilla Sky, we got to come in and be the tech support, but you have to request tech support. And that's the most difficult part of the whole entire thing is there's no manual.
Yep. And another aspect of it is, again, if we think in the terms of the computer analogy, is that, that your computer has files,
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you have files. You have a number of computers in there. We typically work with the big four, but there are actually 12 that I know of. And each of them has a filing system. Each of them's got a hard drive effectively. Now, the interesting thing about files in the human person is that the file will attempt to run itself again. It'll just run itself on autopilot because it believes it's doing something beneficial for you, right? So I'm thinking particularly in the case of this person with the 18 car accidents. I don't, frankly, it was a while back and I don't remember now what we discovered was the core, issue there. But man, I actually think it was a kind of victim issue. That file just got triggered. And we all know about triggering. I mean, that's a very common way of looking at what enrages people or frustrates people or whatever. Well, that's what's happening, is that they have a file that's got triggered. It wants to run itself again. And sometimes even people are in an age regression. They're trying to resolve something that happened, typically before the age of 12. And they didn't have the tools then. And the problem is normally they don't have the tools now either.
Yes.
And that's where they kind of really need an outside eye like yours, like mine, to say, you know what, I'm kind of getting this. And then they go, gosh, I never thought of that connection. I get that a lot.
Yes, because when you're in the experience, you're experiencing it. And the wonderful gift that I have talked to many people that have been through past lives. And the one thing that I always ask them is, why don't you remember? Why don't we remember when we go to the place in between? And the answer is always a resounding. The reason we don't remember is because then we cannot fully immerse ourselves in the experience and the lessons.
Right. Yep.
Otherwise, we would just say, oh, we're playing a video game. Who cares?
Woo-hoo.
Right?
Yeah,
Jump off a building and reset and go to the next adventure.
That's
It would be a disaster. We wouldn't learn anything. And so we've been given this gift of being able to reset ourselves, I guess is my point. And but we need help to do that.
Yep. Oh, it's a good thing there are people like me and you and Dr. Kevin and all these other fabulous coaches and practitioners and hypnotherapists and heaven knows what, because it's so much easier to see it for someone else.
Yes. And I did have a question for you, and I hope you don't mind me asking you a question. But
please.
One of the things that I get a lot is, I'm so lucky to have found you because you're honest. So what would you say is a good marker for people out there who don't know anything about this field, don't really understand this, but want to get into it? What's a good way to find somebody who's honest? What is your idea of, because there's so many people out there that are doing this and are not real. They're not actually trying to help people. And so, what is your way of, is it because some people just don't have the intuition to feel it, or because is it old programming? Why do you feel that people end up choosing someone who is not necessarily real and then have to go through this journey to find someone who's real, like you or I, or somebody who's genuinely doing this, for a good reason? Because there's so many fakes out there.
That is actually a very good question, and I'm going to answer it in a couple of different ways. Because eloquence is my middle name. Okay. In my world, in the world of Geotran, in the world of inner programming, in the world of people who are accustomed to reading the energy fields, we say that this is the art of the question. That the right question will bring up the answer. Just because you're talking to your computers, And this is true of pretty much any question apart from why questions, because why questions actually embed typically a negative picture in your subconscious. And then because the subconscious is not assessing things in terms of their value or quality, it just says, oh, programming, okay, I can do this. So you end up creating or manifesting whatever that negative thing is. So basically, if you ask a why question, it's the same as asking your laptop, why aren't you working properly? And it'll go round and round and round and round and round until it crashes. Okay. So
I ask it that all the time. I ask it that all the time.
But so if you're asking not why questions, so one of the things I teach my people, there are two things that I teach everybody I work with, whether they want to learn them or not. Okay. One is ask the right question. And if you don't know what the right question is, you listen and you say, what's the best question right now? And you muscle test. So I teach everybody muscle testing. In fact, oh, dear listener, if you go to my Facebook group, which is called Light Me Up Coaching, and you go join the group, then you can actually find a whole section on muscle testing. So you can learn how to muscle test. Very, very easy. Now, muscle testing is going to give you yes, no answers, right? So is this the best question? No. Yeah? Is this...
It's immediate with muscle testing. It's like,
don't you just love that?
Yeah, there's no question like, oh, maybe this is the right or wrong answer. It's very...
Well, if you do get a neutral answer, then it says there's a different question. There's a better question, right? Somebody was asking me, oh, should I sell my cryptocurrency? And I got a neutral. And I said, can you break that down into smaller questions? Okay, should you sell this part? Should you sell that part? Should you hold on to this? Once we broke it down into the actual best questions, then we could get very clear yes, no answers for them. Now, this is equally true in the sorts of issues that you and I look at. First question, are you 100% you? If not, I'm going to find out what percent you are, right?
So how would I know? I'm sorry.
Then I will ask,
right,
how many things do we need to know about this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll write it down as a little list, because when your eyes look at a list, your computers want to fill in the blanks, want to fill in the answers.
I see. That's very interesting. Yeah, I love
and then
that.
We test those answers.
And that's good that you test them, because I feel like that also shows people, hey, it's not just that we're just like, this is all scientific stuff. And exactly, woohoo! We're testing this. And
yes,
people ask me all the time, oh, are you going to make me quack like a duck? Are you going to make me bark like a dog? And I said,
I'm not an entertainer. If you want to quack like a duck, you carry right on. Right. It's not my job.
Right. I always tell them, I'm not a character in a movie. I don't play a dog. I don't play one on TV. Like, this is the reality. And I think people are so, they're so excited to try something new, but there's all this fear. And the fear comes from the unknown, not knowing what it is. And so the more that we can spread the big, commercial on this, no, I'm just kidding. The more that we can spread awareness about what we do, the less that they'll be afraid of it.
So getting back to your original question, which really was an excellent question, is how can somebody feel sure that they have found somebody honest to work with? Muscle testing. So learn your muscle testing, practice it every day. I don't know about how you teach people muscle testing, but this I teach them, and there are 4 different ways, and actually they're more like 6, but there's one that I prefer, that people can do it one-handed and they can do it by themselves. And then I send them out into supermarkets.
Oh, nice.
And Chinese restaurants. Because think about it. I mean, you have a Chinese restaurant, typically has this huge menu, and anyway, you don't know what you want to eat. So you go, oh, it's on this page. It's on this page. It's on this page. Oh, it's on page 4. Oh, it's on the left. No, it's on the right. Okay. And then run your finger down the list. Ha! Apparently, I'm eating liver with bok choy tonight. Interesting. But the thing is that, let's say somebody says to one of your clients, as they frequently say to mine, oh, think about working with Dr. Kier. Think about working with Priscilla. And muscle test it. It is obedient. Oh, let's talk about obedience for a minute. Okay.
Yes.
In my world, we talk a lot about obedience, and then everybody gets all bent out of shape because they think I'm talking about like the military or the government or something like that. And I'm not. What I'm saying is that you have a divine blueprint, right? And obedience means, does this action, thought, feeling, desire, belief bring me into closer alignment with my divine blueprint? Of course, your life is going to be better the more in alignment you are with you, with what you decided before you came into this lifetime that you were going to, do, be, have, allow, receive. So when I can get people to wrap their lovely little minds around that one, then it's even easier. Is it I'm asked all the time, is it obedient for me to work with that person who's just approached me? Yes, no. I don't have to run it through my mind. I don't have to be rational about it. I mean, being rational is fine, but I don't have to do it that way. I mean, I grew up in a very academic, science-based world. I had two parents who were computer programmers at a high level. My father was a mathematician. My best friend is a physics professor. He has no idea what I do. I mean, after 48 years, occasionally he will come to me and say, you know that thing you do that I don't understand or agree with or believe in? My shoulder hurts. Could you do whatever that thing is?
Can you do your thing that you do?
Yeah, but is it obedient? Is it obedient for that person, Henry over here? Is it obedient for me to work with Henry? Is it obedient for Henry to work with me? Is it obedient to the greater plan for us to work together? If any of those is no, I'm not touching it.
Yes. I feel the same way. I really, this is why I do a comprehensive interview with my client. This is why I give them the choice to think about what we talked about. Because for me, I'm wanting to make a lasting change in your life. If you're not ready for that, it's not up to me to tell you that you are. And I'm not going to sit for hours and hours and listen to you tell me why you're not ready, because it doesn't make sense. Right?
It's not helpful to you or to the client.
Right. So what I want to do is talk about why you are ready. I want to talk about what you know and not what you've been taught. Yes. What you've been taught to know and what you know. What you know are very different things.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why I really like to have a look at somebody's human design chart as well. First lesson always does a check. Is it obedient? But if it is obedient, I will ask for their details so I can have a look at their circuitry. Geotran's all about circuitry. Human design's all about circuitry. The activation, which is a technique I've developed myself, is all about switching on those gates in human design. It's all about changing the circuitry, because then I'm getting a picture of how they function, probably in shorthand.
Right.
Because I want to be efficient for them, and say, let's really dive in and get this right the first time.
Yes, because I think it has been preached and taught that, you have to do all this really hard stuff to get to the answer. And it's not about working hard. It's about working smart. And that's so cliche. And I used to hate it when people said that. But now I know exactly what they were talking about.
Exactly.
So I say, what, are you saying I'm stupid? No. There's a smarter way to do this. If you just keep looking for it, if you just keep knowing what you know and not knowing what you've been learned, what someone has taught you to know, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, in Geotran, we say the glory of God is intelligence, and intelligence is truth and light. And above every glory is a higher glory. So that means above every truth is a higher truth. Above every light is a higher light. Now, we all know people who may know part of the truth, but oh man, their light is just a little. And we all know people who've got boatloads of light, but what are they reading with that light? We all have these records inside us, these files, and our job is to use that higher light as best we may to read our own records and operate from those. And this is, of course, part of the problem, is that we're surrounded with other human beings who, with the best will in the world, are teaching us crap.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because dogma cause agenda, who they've been exposed to, they've got computer glitches up the wazoo. Not you and me, of course, but others.
I truly believe that sometimes we feel like we're orphans raising orphans.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
Because our parents get these tools and they're like, how do you use this? And then they get a couple of things and they're like, okay, a few lessons on them. And then they give them to us and they go, this is how you use it. But each time you relay information is taken out, right? So when it gets down to the great grandchildren, the amount of information that we're being taught as opposed to what originally was there is so small that we have to go out and be little, astronauts or observers or whatever you want to call it, and find the original version, because it's been, it's like telephone. It's been passed down. I have a great little anecdote, if we have time, a little story that was told to me by one of my very first mentors about a ham. And there was, it's Christmas. Have you heard this story?
Oh, it's one I'm pretty sure it's one my teacher used to tell all the time. Tell it for our viewers.
So there's this ham. And they've lots of recipes been passed down, and you see a lovely little family sitting. It's Christmas dinner, and there's this ham, and the little girl goes, Grandma, why do we cut the ends off the ham? She said, oh, because my mom did it, and my mom did it, and my mom did it. And then eventually we find out that the reason the mom cut the ends off the ham was because the pan was too small. Yeah. There was, and they had come up with all of these, oh, it's a tradition. Oh, it's because we're from Greece. Oh, it's because of all these other things. And the main reason was the pan was too darn small. So we had to make the ham smaller, right?
Yep.
And so, but through these generations, all these stories and all these things came about of it. So that's basically what a lot of our information consists of, is we have to be willing to go out and find the truth. And muscle testing is helpful. Also, all of these other tools as well. But at the end of the day, what is knowledge really anyways? It's information that's been imparted from a source that's greater than us, right? So if we seek out the source that's greater than us, then we will find the knowledge that we need. And with scientific knowledge and with the spirituality and combining the mind, body, and spirit, and also our field, I don't want to leave that out, the electrical field that's around us. And forgive me if I don't know the name of it. But remember how, like, when you're sad, you feel really small? That's because it gets smaller. When you're happy, you feel really big, right? And it gets bigger. So think about, you're really happy and you bump into somebody who's really sad. What happens to your field? It doesn't get bigger. It goes. Yeah. So the more people that we can, so our inner circle is very important. Who are we spending time with? Are we spending time with people who have what we want? Or are we spending time with people who are just as miserable as we are, hoping that we're not miserable? But in that sense, if I went out wanting to exercise and found a bunch of people that had no idea what exercise was, and we all just go get coffee in our running clothes and say we exercised, how am I going to grow in that way? I got to find people that are triathlon runners, or at least people who know what to do.
Jog a little.
At least people who jog a little bit. And
the best people to hang out with are those people who are doing what you want to do and being who you want to be, plus 10%.
Exactly.
You do not want to be the smartest person in the room, actually, if you want to learn anything. You actually want to be the second or third smartest in the room. So there's somebody who can just really pull you up to whatever it is you're attempting to do. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, who you hang out with, very, very important. And also, I'm sure you come across, clearing genetic line contaminations, for instance. I mean, sort of what you were saying, um, about the grandmother and the great grandmother and the great great grandmother with the two small pans. Um, but we actually have specific codes for dealing with that kind of thing in Geotran, because Geotran, another description or definition of Geotran is the language of all possibilities. And my teacher, Dorothy Espio, was always talking about having the freedom to choose, restoring people to choice. You must have seen that film, What the Bleep Do We Know? Do you remember that film?
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, with Marley Matlin, that amazing deaf actress. Yeah. Do you remember that scene where she's going along this road under some trees? It's beautiful out, and she's not paying any attention to it because she is so pissed off with her
Yes.
soon-to-be ex-husband. I mean, she is just enraged and resentful.
She's over it.
And here's this little kid playing with the basketball. And when we look from his perspective, there are all these basketballs behind her, which are all the possibilities. But when we're looking from her point of view, there's only the one, which is this enormous rage she has towards her husband or her ex-husband. Yeah. And I sometimes think that the very best thing that we can do for our clients is to show them that there are other choices. And the thing that has been filtering their choices are these thoughts, feelings, beliefs, desires that are choking up their inner field.
Yes.
Oh, it looks like we're out of time. Would you like to say a few last words, Priscilla, please? Do you have
I would like to say it's been such a pleasure talking about this with you, and I'm so glad that you're in the world doing the wonderful things that you're doing.
Oh, likewise. This is fabulous. I can see that your work must be so helpful. Really, really appreciate you coming on the show today. And we'll talk to you all soon. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.